Good day and welcome to the Power Up. I'm your host, Tami Hill Thomas, excited to bring you information that impacts your community, your home, even our world. Welcome as we educate, equip, empower, and elevate so that we are the ones making a difference where we are. Let's get started. We're first going to start today with global news. The World Health Organization once again highlighted a health emergency appeal at the United Nations meeting. Information that's so important that's impacted epidemics, health issues, crises globally. As we entered 2023, the number of people who needed humanitarian relief had increased by almost a quarter from the prior year, just at the beginning of the year. And with a record of 339 million people requiring urgent assistance, many of whom risk serious health threats, the World Health Organization elevated a sounding alarm. The rise in climate change related disasters, conflicts, and interruptions with food systems, ongoing impact of COVID-19's pandemic has created a dangerous combination of threats to global health. We at the Power Up wanted to make sure to sound this alarm and educate you so that you can again do the same in your community. With increased funding and urgent action, the World Health Organization believes that they can ensure that health is protected during emergencies. You can learn more by going to who.nit. They are an international entity established by the United Nations to work on humanitarian crises, saving lives, supporting others with recovery efforts, preventing many disasters or at least the spread of diseases across countries, even across borders, ensuring the communities have the opportunity to rebuild and prosper in the future. This alarm is meant to totally develop new sustainable development goals, what the World Health Organization calls an emergency appeal. How they're requesting funding. The United States alone has donated $2.54 billion to assist with this global effort because of its need of urgent life-saving support. Remember, we have family members across the water. Even if it's not touching your home right now, does not mean it won't your children and generations to come. So the World Health Organization takes the opportunity when you go to this website to share resources, how you can help, and real-time facts and statistics. The result has made sure that the United States is elevated as one of the biggest contributors globally to humanitarian efforts. The contingency fund for emergency was established specifically to help across the water. Do you know that your funds and that what you donate during your taxes actually goes to so many different ways that the government appropriates? One of them is to assist with global humanitarian efforts. So yeah, donate, write that off on your taxes when you make personal contributions because it goes to help someone else. Remember that we're all under the skin the same: hearts, lungs, internal organs. Whatever we may reflect from the outside, it's about being that one human race. How can you help? Start by being equipped and educated. Go to the World Health Organization's website, who.int, and become a resource in your community for how information can be shared, how we can help individuals who are experiencing earthquakes like those still recovering in Syria and Turkey, those in Libya who are recovering from the massive flooding that was impacted and wept through towns. 10,000 individuals confirmed dead, another 10,000 missing because the dams broke after a horrible hurricane. The World Health Organization has deployed individuals to oftentimes go hours just to get relief to those who they can reach. Family, you can make a difference. You can be part of how to assist with these massive recovery efforts. I promise when you go to who.int, it gives you information on the aftermath, on recovery, on what is happening around the globe that you can support. Rebuilding primary health services for those in different countries, including women's reproductive health in Syria that was impacted. Mm. Helps us understand the deployment efforts to many disaster zones and how earthquakes from years ago have still been impacting those living in many communities. Family, many of us in the United States were traumatized by 9/11. So much so that 22 years later, we still reflect and established different ways to make us better in times of emergency. We care just that much about our brothers and sisters around the globe, those across the water who have family members right next door to us, co-workers, those in our communities. We should care. How we can support emergency medical teams that are the ones carrying the relief. If you were in need, you wouldn't rightly care who was coming. You're just hoping for help. That is the goal of the World Health Organization. You can be responsible to help with how they donate, how they impact, all because of small contributions or even being educated. How much of a resource can you be to make sure that folks in your community understand that there are those who are dealing with trauma and need our help? Family, resources is what we provide to you here to be equipped, educated, so that you can then be empowered to make a difference. We're excited to continue with our show because we have so much more information and inspiration to come. Stay tuned. There's more after this.
Hey, 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 how you guys doing? This is Regina Hutt, the wellness practitioner at Empower Mornings. Join me every Monday at noon to work out with Regina on One Network.
Welcome back, family. Welcome to the Power Up. I'm your host, Tami, and we're going to keep going with this powerful segment. During this moment, we celebrate, we acknowledge, we remain aware and sensitive to Mental Health Awareness Month. During our advocacy periods, we take time on the Power Up to make sure that you're educated and receive real insight from those who are passionate advocates and experts. And I'm excited to bring today just one. We're welcoming to the Power Up today Miss Carissa Riddle. Carissa is a global coach and advocate, someone who is totally sensitive and has a heart for people and those who present whatever it looks like. We're honestly so glad to have you, Carissa. Welcome to the Power Up as an advocate during this Mental Health Awareness Month.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Carissa, we know that your advocacy We know that your work in the community and your heart globally as a coach, certainly, and also sharing the transparent stories, has elevated how important mental health is. I'll take just 1 minute to share a few statistics because it's important that we educate our listeners that 47% of the US adults with mental illness received treatment just in 2022. That's almost 50% of our nation. Someone to your right or your left is living with mental illness. And it certainly was elevated during the pandemic. Carissa, what's the message you would share with the world during this Mental Health Awareness Month?
Thank you for asking. The most critical message that I would get out is that, just based on your statistics alone, Tami, that you're not alone. You're not alone in knowing someone who struggles with mental health issues. You're not alone in struggling yourself. Perhaps you are actively going through it, or are caring for and loving someone and worrying about somebody who's experiencing mental health concerns. And it's important, I think, in that message that you are not alone, uh, to remember that in this we're in a good time. I should just say we're in a good time because it is becoming more acceptable to talk about, and that's a change. It's a change from even a decade ago, where people didn't speak about their otherhood. They weren't able to talk about things that weren't mainstream. Uh, there's more acceptance to speak about those things now, but there's still that bit around mental health that, particularly in our country and our culture, I would say that we are a bootstrap nation. And so we're expected to handle things. And in handling things, um, when we don't feel like we can, that's when we get shame and we hide it because it's not okay. And that's where that message, you're not alone, is so important, because not, not everyone can fix it for you. There's a part that, but there is help. There's so much help available, um, when you ask, when you speak of it. And the more we share and the more we're honest about it, and we demystify it and we normalize the fact that we all struggle, I think that, that stigma can go away. People can get the help they need. They can move through what are often very temporary and situational events that drive those mental health moments and periods in their lives, and they can get well and they can feel joy again.
Thank you for elevating. Thank you for highlighting and for advocating. Um, you totally have a reputation, that is one of being super sensitive and caring. And knowing your professionalism, and how high you are in government, it's so rare. Like, not going into your professional world and all that you do at an executive level, to still find time to coach individuals and then advocate on the sensitivity that's needed. What would you share with, our viewers on how we can best support our neighbors and family members?
That's a great question. I reflect on that because I come from a position of some personal experience, of when I needed to draw upon support, and and in some cases when it wasn't there, and part of that was my fault. Um, I'll share just a story of a time in my life where I went through some rather dark and difficult events. And I'm old school. I went and grabbed, in one moment of desperation and thought of who will I call. I went and grabbed my address book, that old thing that we used to write them down in and no longer do. And I started flipping through the pages, and that was even worse because I realized there was nobody in there that I would have called. And of course, got me reflecting on the people who move in and out of the closeness and further rings in your life. But what it really magnified for me is the resource that we need is our grab and go emergency kit before we have the emergency. And that means that we foster and nourish relationships and contacts of people who we would be able to speak with. Even if they're not dear friends, there are people and resources that have the ability to speak to what you need or experience to draw upon. Somebody or know someone who does, who has access into mental health resources. Somebody who's been through alcoholism and has recovered, God willing. Someone who's maybe gone through a difficult health crisis and has navigated that and has come out of it. Sadly, we know people who've lost people to suicide. And having your emergency grab and go file, in essence, emotionally and mentally, so that if you find yourself or you find a loved one going through difficult times, that you have resources you can reach out to, is something that would have been invaluable for me at the time, and now is something I look to foster, not only restoring my inner circle that seems to have drifted and shifted in the pandemic, but really fostering a Rolodex, to go back to my old terms, of resources to call upon if different things happen. I think that would be a toolkit item that absolutely everybody needs to have.
So the resources and the network. I love that you gave us action steps. It's important that we get educated. So it's not just awareness that it's quite possible, but how about prepare for it? So I would love to go a little further into your wonderful expertise and advocacy. Um, the National Alliance on Mental Illness shares regular statistics. And it's interesting how one of the statistics said that 65% of adults with 65% of adults with serious mental illness are now being treated. But that has increased since the pandemic. So it's one thing to have a mental illness, but the pandemic highlighted our awareness for those who didn't know. As a coach, what do you see is the best way we can support coworkers or neighbors, or in those moments when we're seeing something we just need to respond or react to? What advice would you give us?
Be aware, be sensitized along with being sensitive. That radar of picking up on others, we've been shut away for a long time. And as people emerge back into the world, there's, for some, perhaps a bit of a sense of overload. There's that, just the social contact and the bright lights and noise of being around people again and emerging out from that can be a lot. uh, be aware, be sensitized about your space with people, you know, and that some may still have a sense of social distance, and our personal boundaries may have shifted. What used to be close, comfortable conversation and physical space, and the old rules of how far you could be from somebody that you were comfortable with, those have shifted. Watch people's body language. Be tuned in to be tuned into the people who you may reach out to who don't respond, and don't hold it against them. Uh, for some people who are going through challenges of coming back, your contact and your repeated effort can be a bright, shining light in their day, even if they don't have it to give to reach back to you. So I'd say don't give up on them. You know, I wouldn't, of course, harm your own boundaries and self-respect and pursue people who don't want to be pursued. That's not what I'm talking about. But, you know, the friends that you know are still friends, but are just kind of distant. You know, be okay with being the pursuer sometimes, and holding the holding them up. It's interesting. I saw something, you know, biblical verse that inspired me about that, and it was Mark 2, and how Jesus healed a paralyzed man because of his friend's faith. So that's why your circle matters, right? I had seen that, and I was like, that just really hit. Your circle matters because they hold you up when you don't have it to give. So be that for your coworkers. Watch out for how they're feeling. Understand that moods may be a little, people may be a little more tense. People have been a little more short sometimes in their language. We've lost, I think, a bit of our social niceties, maybe, in just hanging out at home. I know I've gotten a lot more comfortable in, coming on camera without makeup, uh, or or people just seeing us in our home setting where we used to have these strong divisions. So understand that there have been changes in how people interact with one another, and social structure has kind of shifted. This has been an incredible time for changing how we interact with one another, but be sensitized to the fact that they may be struggling. Look in their eyes, make eye contact, watch their body language. Be aware of what folks are displaying that they're not speaking about.
Wow. Wow. Thank you. You left us with how-to steps as well. Some folks, we get used to just the norm, or we did have a norm, um, where we walk past people and not say good morning and not even care. But statistics have shown, especially highlighted since the pandemic, how mental health, people who didn't know they had a mental health issue, the walls started closing in on them, or they lost multiple family members because of COVID and the stress of bereavement. Um, I would, if you could, in your advocacy, you talk about trauma. You're one who has been very open with your experiences with trauma and how to move forward through to get to the other side of a traumatic episode. What advice would you share with someone who might be sitting in a struggle right now that is traumatic to them?
So first of all, and Tami touched on it, and again, because I believe in transparency and destigmatizing some of the traumas that I've been through, just to help explain why I say this is what helped move me through. I've lost family members to overdose. I've lost family members including a half sister and my own stepson, to suicide. I've also been experiencing for the last year and plus long COVID and the trauma associated with that very serious health scare, and the change in my own health and limitations and what life looks like for the future. So moving through trauma, I've got to say, there were moments where I would have shrugged my shoulders and said, you got me. I wish I could find my way out. I'm sure entirely on the other side of some of that. Some of this you live with and you figure out along the way. That's one of my answers. Some of this you understand becomes a part of your sense of self, that you've experienced this. But what's helping me is also recognizing it's not who I am. It's part of my narrative, it's part of my story, but it's not who I am. And the same is true with the situational mental health crises, or circumstantial. For instance, you go through periods of anxiety, you can go through periods of depression that are driven by the events. And that's separate from those who go, of course, and I'm not a mental health professional. I'm just saying, speaking as an advocate and a coach, in my own experience, those are different than those that are medically diagnosed and so on. But nonetheless, some of the things that you do that you need help with to get through those and to identify them are similar. You need to have a strong network. You need to remember that, and I'll say that I had a very wise person in my life tell me that even in your darkest hour, you can still get through 1 minute at a time, 1 minute by 1 minute, and eventually those add up. Even though it's hard and you want to stay isolated, try not to stay isolated. Try to go and grab that emergency folder of your resources and make one call. If you have to, put a blast out on a social media post and just say, I need help. And you'd be amazed at who shows up at your door. There are other resources that are available. There are employee assistance programs for almost any large employer and many small ones. Your health insurance will often have crisis counseling lines. There's 988 as a national crisis number that thank heavens came into being in the past year. There's a number of other resources. Tami, you've mentioned some of them. National Alliance on Mental Illness. There's American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. There are some others that I can think just off the top of my head. Findsupport.gov. Really easy. Findsupport.gov, right? There are United Way and other phone numbers in your local community that you can reach out as resources. There are, if they are trauma induced, there's RAINN, RAINN, for those who've experienced assault and sexual traumas. There are all kinds of resources out there, more than I ever would have thought possible. And I don't think that this is a time to keep to yourself. This is the time to honor your need and your right, your inherent worth and value, and treat yourself to the things that you would want for anyone else you love. Go and get them for yourself, because you have that inherent worth, and it's important to do it.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you, Carissa Riddle, not just for joining us today, but for living everything you just poured into us. 988, other resources. Y'all know we bring the experts here on this show. So, what better person than a global coach with her stature and someone who lives it and is respected? Family, Carissa Riddle, you can reach on Instagram. Also, she will be back as one of our regular correspondents and featured interviewees during different mental health topics. This is also Depression Awareness Month, so we're going to highlight all of the different ways you can get help. Remember, thank you, Carissa. You are not alone. You are not alone. We appreciate you joining us here at the Power Up. We hope this segment has lifted you and inspired you a little bit to help you feel empowered to move forward. Stay tuned. There's more after this.
Good morning. Marshall Weeks here with you on Financial Friday. Do we really believe God loves us, or are we too focused on how much we love God? Deuteronomy 31:8 tells us God will never leave us nor forsake us, meaning he will never leave us physically or neglect us emotionally. He is concerned about our physical, mental, and emotional health. So why are we distracted by short-term financial problems when we serve a long-term, permanent, solutions-oriented God? Did we reach out to him first before we borrowed the money? Did we give him the opportunity to whisper in one of his angels' ears to sponsor us or pay for us? Did we discuss the job offer with him, or did we jump at the opportunity to make an extra $2 an hour doing double the work when he gave us the business idea, wanting to grow and stretch us, fine-tune our self-discipline so we could handle the multi-million-dollar dynasty and be his channel to bless others on their life journey? How quickly are we to say without saying, "I got this, God. Let me call you back"? Then when we realize our limited vision and short-term solution cause some long-term problems. Let us not grow tired of seeking him on every financial decision, and let us never forget that our focus should always be on how much he loves us. So when our back is up against the wall, we know we have a Father who will always cause us to triumph on the other side of the challenge. We need to consider it pure joy to go through God's process on the way to financial blessings rather than to suffer the consequences of a bad financial decision. You've been empowered because you should prosper.
Welcome back to the Power Up. As we continue to share information, we want to now walk into a question we received from a reviewer. We're going to move into our career elevation segment. The viewer simply said, "Tami, I'm hopping between jobs. I need advice on how to sustain professionalism and my mental health." What a powerful question. We certainly appreciate the fact that the first acknowledged that they need the help. So here we want to remind you of how important it is that you tap into the resources that are around you to help you with whatever hopping you might be experiencing. Whether career transitions in life happen. So it's about being prepared and reassuring yourself with the information you need during the shifts in life, specifically career shifts. There are a few things to remember. First, there can be a benefit to switching a job. People often feel like they have to stay in a specific place, stuck, because they can't do better. The fear factor of what if that doesn't work out. And honey, I'm trying to tell you to leap, enjoy life, and grasp all you possibly can. So, with that, it means that you might have to impose the shift if there's stagnant behavior, or even, let's say, disrespectful behavior, because you don't have to stay somewhere where you are not valued. Consider whether the shift is positive, how you can even make it positive if it's not imposed by yourself. In other words, if you got that pink slip and they just gave you notice, okay, there's things that have to happen and have to happen quickly. That's when your planning gets in place, your strategies start to step in. That's where the best of you and your organization skills become highlighted. I know that from 9 to 10, I'm going to be sending out resumes. I have an interview I'm going to be scheduling every Wednesday, or however you need to do it, so that you can stay your best when it doesn't necessarily feel like the situation you would want to happen. Okay. Another thing to think about is prioritizing your mental health during the shifts. What is your support system? What mentors, coaches, advocates have you surrounded yourself with? Is Big Mama on your list to have a conversation with once a week, just so that you can gain the wisdom in the fact that you're walking a path that she's probably walked 100 times? What are you doing to get someone to pour back into you? That's when your faith becomes important. How you can get replenished in that valley is going to be what helps you sustain. See, we are creatures of habit. So when things go, we don't use that side of our muscle. We're just doing it by habit. We get up, we cut on the coffee pot, we yell for the kids to get out of bed, we're putting our shoes, we have things are what we do. The problem is that when those things stop, we then have to rely on the strengths that are within us and the strengths we can learn in that space. YouTube University. How about those Kindle books where you can listen to motivational speakers or heal new skills, learn a language? What are you doing in that space of the shift? Another one is to consider: show up with your passions and dedication in this moment, right? If you're hopping, that's not the focus. Clearly, you're trying to get to a place of stability. So make that your focus. Make the focus what you want to accomplish. Do I want to get to a place where the employer is wearing casual gear, or where I feel like I'm leading a team, where there's a potential and where I can climb in the organization? Or do I want to get into an industry I love, whether I stay with this organization or not? In other words, do I just want to be in the education field? Do I just want to be in the medical field? Even if you're an accountant, they need folks, accountants in the medical field, in the education field, in transportation and trucking or airlines. Figure out what your passion is and dedicate your energy and time during a shift. I'm calling your hopping season a shift, because there's clearly a reason you're leaving repeatedly. What are you looking for? Family, take the opportunity to write down your vision. Write down what you're hardwired to do. What do you love to do? Any coach will start with, what do you want to accomplish? What would you like the outcome to be? And then let's say you never accomplish that. What then? Are you all of a sudden not sufficient because you can't work in a medical field, but you're an accountant? Or can you find something to do that still pleases your passion, still makes you enjoy life every day? We often get in a place where our job becomes our identity. I want to encourage you to consider something. Your why your heart, your passion is your identity, not the fact that I work for such and such. We saw during the pandemic that many jobs folded, many companies, they had to close. And so we experienced a extremely high unemployment rate like that because of a disease, airborne, that folks didn't know about, that took us and swept around the globe. Everybody experienced economic impact one way or another. But recovery will happen, restoration will happen, renewal will happen, refocus will happen. So get to a place where you can replenish and find what works for you. To my viewer, I would for you to consider this. If you're leaving repeatedly, what are you looking for? Write that question down on a piece of paper and start writing responses. Give yourself permission to say, you know what? I would rather do this. I would rather experience this. I would rather see little kids every time I go to work. I love the senior population, our geriatric community. I would really rather work somewhere where their last years I get to smile and motivate them. I don't like being in this particular situation. So let me find a way to highlight my skills on this next resume, because you have to have more than one version sometimes, so that I can be the best me featured in these next interviews. Because all things are possible. So it's what you're doing to be able to get to what you want to ultimately experience. For my folks who need resource help, consider going to careeronestop.org. This is through the Department of Labor, Employment, and Training Administration. CareerOneStop.org has so many resources that are available to you across the country. They have information about unemployment benefits. If you were fired and laid off, what you need to do in this season while you're looking for a new job. They also have resources in your town and federally. They're meant to give you a one-stop spot to help you grow and make your next steps clear. What you need to know about workforce development, community services. How about benefits and assistance? What happened to my COBRA when I left my last job? I was putting money into a 401k. What happened with that? Information readily available. They also have an email address, info@Career One Stop. They have numbers you can call and speak to someone. Go to careeronestop.org to get the help you might be seeking during this season of transition. Thank you, viewer, for your comment, for your question. We are certainly here, as always, to educate, motivate. We want you to be empowered. Okay, now I have a place I can go to. Now I feel empowered that, yes, I can. Let's do this thing. You know why? Because you got this. Whatever's in front of you is meant for you. Family, there's more to come as we go into our wrap up. Wow, what a powerful segment. Stay tuned. There's more after this.
Hi, guys. It's Tina Wynn, your host of the podcast, You See Me. I want you guys to stay encouraged, continue to come out and see me, and most importantly, see yourselves. Remember, the only way that you can truly enjoy life is to see other people so that you can enjoy the beauty of seeing yourself. Come join me Saturdays at 4 on the We Empowered Network. Thank you.
Welcome back to the Power Up. What a day of information. inspiration. We hope that you leave today's segment gaining insight and feeling your worth. Family, our production team, the amazing folks who come together to do this research and produce this information for you, feel it's too invaluable to not make sure we highlight stories that touch not just you, but the entire world, because we are one. So we started today with our global news, highlighted by the alarming World Health Organization emergency alert, where they elevated the need for assistance around the globe. Their alert made sure to share how different countries, different towns, different nations are experiencing crises, how there's an alarming issue of disease running rampant because of climate change, how it affects the human body, and how there are those in other countries who need help. You can get more information by going to the World Health Organization. They are a dynamic resource advocate. They're the ones who make sure that they elevate any soil where there's any issue. Again, created by the United Nations. Go to who.int. Get information about the crises in Haiti. Sending prayers to our brothers and sisters around the world, recovering from earthquakes, dealing with disaster far and near. How can you help? Tap into valuable resources. The World Health Organization. We then had the honor of being visited today by such a passionate global heart, Miss Carissa Riddle. She is a coach and an advocate in the mental health community, reminding us that you matter and you are not alone. The National Alliance on Mental Illness reminded us during this Mental Health Awareness Month that almost 50% of Americans are living with a mental illness. You're not alone. Go to the National Alliance on Mental Illness at NAMI.org to get information on the different facts, statistics that impact our nation, and information you need to know, real-time resources, so that you can help someone next to you. You can help that family and community member. You can also tap into the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, SAMHSA.gov. They're another government entity established to share information and provide real-time resources. 988 is one of those easy text numbers that can help if you're experiencing trauma or crisis and need to speak to someone right now. 911 is an emergency. 988 is your mental health emergency. Go to samhsa.gov and to NAMI.org to get more information. And then we elevated our career elevation segment when we responded to our viewers who sent an email to Tami at poweruptv.net, who is experiencing job shifts and wanted to know how to be able to sustain her mental state during the shift process and how they should move forward. So we took the opportunity to remind you that it's not always a negative thing when shifts happen. Shifts are a part of life. Nothing stays the same. You're not still a newborn fresh out the womb. You've got some years behind you. Change happens. Those of us that live in different parts of the globe, we experience seasonal changes: spring, summer, winter, fall, which means the planet itself has shifts that it deals with, changing seasons, and it all helps to replenish. So when the next season comes, it puts in the earth what's necessary for the next season. Did you ever think about that? We often complain about the rain, but oh, how important it is to learn to dance in the rain. because we're 60% water. So we need to stay hydrated, which means we need the rain. Those of us that eat from the sea, the water helps our lawns. Come on, somebody washing your car. Family, instead of feeling bound by the situation, change your perspective. If you will, change the channel like you would on an old school TV. Come on, pull that remote up and change to the next channel. If you don't like what you're seeing, you don't stay there miserable. You get up, you decide there's something better, and I'm going to find it. Be intentional, be mission focused about winning, and whether it's your career or personal life, the common denominator is you being the best you possible. Family, all of the information shared today is meant to equip, educate, empower, and elevate you so that when you're a coach with those around you, you're sharing this information. When you go visit the elderly that are part of your life, even your neighbor, checking on them, you have the information. And when someone presents like they're in a struggle during this mental health awareness month, you just learned some new tips. Grateful that Carissa reminded us that coming out of the pandemic means social changes are happening. Some folk got really comfortable not having to deal with people, but now that you have to deal with people, that requires soft, sensitive skills. Family, reminding us to be aware and sensitive can make a difference. Reminding us to be aware of our space with others and sensitive to eye contact so that body language is clear. Come on, somebody. What we want to do is be difference makers in the earth, right? We are those change agents. We're not just sitting here letting life whip us around and beat us like a flag on a flag. Oh no. We're out here trying to live life, in fact, our best life, and do it out loud and on purpose. So that means taking time to first be honest with yourself. I really don't like this job. I really don't like what I'm doing here, but I like the work. Well, I got news for you. There's a whole world out there that does the same type of work where you can get a better vibe and get to a place where you absolutely love what you're doing. And then for those who have just said to yourself in the back of your mind, I'm really sick of going to work for somebody else. Come on, entrepreneur. It's possible because there are so many others out here that have started small businesses. So much so that there's a small business administration that gives grants to help folks start small businesses. You have to tap into the resources around you, to tap into what you want to do, what you're hardwired and created to make a difference with in the world. You play the keyboard, the piano, and you're not playing, and that's what you love. There are job seeking pianists. Family, stop living in limits. Let us be the best self possible. There are coaches, advocates, there are advisors. I often share, I shared this morning during a coaching call, someone struggling with their bills because they are dealing with an employment shift, they got laid off. There are financial advisors at your local bank. You can walk right into the bank and you'll see on the door financial advisor. Sit down with someone, be real about what you're dealing with right now, what you might need to cut back, and then really accept the fact that a shift in my life is happening. Okay, I just experienced it myself. I moved and I had to make a decision in my moving. Do I need to take this with me? That stuff has been in storage for 3 years. If I haven't dealt with it for 3 years, do I really need it? Sometimes purging, releasing, letting that thing go is one of the best parts of a shift. You don't have to hold on to baggage, people feeling and what they're saying. I'm not saying it doesn't hurt. What I'm saying is during a life shift, you have to decide, do I really need to hear all of that from that person today? Or do I need to connect with someone that I see winning and get the vibe from them and make sure that they are part of my circle? Do I need to tap into people and new networks, get myself with new Facebook groups or Instagram groups or these different type of social streams that are out here with positive resources? Because it's out there. And your mental health is too important. Your affirmations every day you owe to yourself. I am. Start your day. Thank you for. Start your day. Whatever your mission, before we jump into this project, we're going to thank everybody for the skills they bring to the table. Teamwork makes the dream work. So consider what you need to do to bring the best outside of you to the best part of you, so that during this season, because it's a season, it's only temporary, you're not making the wrong permanent decisions, so that when you look back, you have full regrets. Because, family, there's nothing you can do about regrets. You can say it, you can feel it. I have my own. But at some point, you got to make peace with the mistake so you can move forward. See, that new job is waiting. That new business is ready for you. The new boo is out there. Come on, somebody. There's the new place. I just moved. There's new that's ready. Are you in position so that you're freeing up the excess baggage on your heart, in your mind, surrounding you? Have you learned how to prioritize your peace? Because if you sacrifice your peace, the cost is too pricey. Family, what an amazing segment today. We extend our heartfelt prayers and thoughts across the water to our brothers and sisters who are dealing and recovering from disasters. Those in our communities who have been dealing with restoring after hurricanes and different crises. Even those in our homes who are dealing with some horrible bereavement, losing loved ones, and the issues of life. We stand with you at the Power Up. We also extend our continued gratitude to those on the front line, our 911 responders, the medical professionals that when you run in because you're just sick and can't do it anymore, they with compassion aid and help so that we can be the best healthy us. We thank our veterans for their service and our active duty military. Family, there are folks who are winning every day, including you. You've just got to take the time to celebrate your wins. We look forward to seeing you on the next Power Up. Stay great. You know why? Because you're great, even when it doesn't feel like it. We'll see you next time.